Call of the Wild currently has 11 different reserves with all different types of terrain to navigate. And with the prospects of an Africa 2.0 or even an Australia map being added, I feel like sometimes the ATV falls short of the terrain requirements. So today I would like to discuss some potential additions we could see added to Call of the Wild that would help making traversing those reserves that little bit easier. So let's go ahead and jump on into it, starting off with some horses, which would serve as a really quiet but efficient way of getting around tough to navigate terrain. And I feel like they will be a welcome addition to Call of the Wild, especially for certain reserves like Silverage Peak or even Rancho del Arroyo, where the terrain can sometimes be quite difficult for the ATVs to navigate. Another example would be New Zealand, where the dense forest areas make it really difficult to get through on an ATV without getting stuck multiple times. But also the noise that the ATV creates means that any potential animals that would be there are spooked by the time you actually get to their location. Next up, I would absolutely love to see dirt bikes being added to Call of the Wild for one very specific reason. It would be a really quick and nimble mode of transport for covering large distances of open areas on reserves. For example, there's a couple of areas like that on this map here where you can see around me there's just open fields that would take a little while to run across, or even on the ATV maybe wouldn't be the best fit for it. So having a dirt bike where you can just go beeline straight on through and get to your different outposts and lookout towers that much quicker would be a really welcome addition. It could even have an adaptability to the snowy climate of Medved, meaning that you could have an easier way of getting around that map too, and would massively help speed up unlocking the different reserves that are currently out there. Now then, my third suggestion isn't a vehicle per se, but rather a really crucial part of utility that I think could be introduced to the game. Now, I know that this is one that some of you guys may not want to see added for a few various different reasons, and I am aware of that, but I'm still going to suggest it, and I think that the addition that we could see being added would be drones. We are surrounded by technology in everywhere that we look, and I feel that Call of the Wild should be no different, and I would absolutely love to see it being added for the purpose of unlocking need zones that you otherwise may not be able to get to very easily. For example, on Leighton Lakes, with the two rivers that run down through and then join up, there are sometimes hundreds of meters that you have to cover before you can get to a river crossing, by which point the wind direction has changed or the animals have spooked, meaning that it's a lot more difficult to get those need zones unlocked. With a drone, you can simply pull it out, go across the water, unlock that need zone, and then you have it as a reference point for coming back to later on. I also know that there's been instances on Parque Fernando, for example, where the trees are so dense that by the time I get through them, I've already spooked the animals off and then it's a chasing game. And the same thing happens sometimes with the Cape Buffalo on Varonga. A drone would make this a lot more simple. For example, if you were going to a specific lake, you could put the drone out over the water, look around the circumference of the lake, and see which animals are there without having to run around yourself, again, increasing that risk that you spook the animals off. But this one is probably one of the more controversial ones, so I would absolutely love to know your guys' opinions of it down in the comments below. Now then, as I mentioned, we have the prospect of an Africa 2.0 map being introduced, so for that reason, the next thing that I think would be really awesome if they added to Call of the Wild, even for Varonga that currently exists, would be some kind of safari-style Jeep. Something that either has a built-in tent with the ability for you to access your store and also inventory, or even something that has a hunting stand equipped onto the back. Now, we have already seen an example of this in the game, but I think an interactive version that you could go ahead and use from outposts exclusively, unlike the ATVs, which can be accessed from a tent, would be a really awesome feature for you on the Africa map, especially if they add a brand new Africa 2.0 map, which I imagine would be more like a safari with open areas without any kind of hunting stand or tent accessible to you. And this style of Jeep would be that sort of go-to in between, where you could set up in the morning, be there throughout the day, and then by the evening the animals come on in. But of course, its ability to move around means that you can set up in different spots throughout the day, and it would just really help make the game feel that little bit more immersive and also that little bit more adaptable as well. Now, it wouldn't really work for a reserve which is quite small and has a lot of hard to access areas, but for an open plan map similar to what you see with especially an Africa map or even the Australian outback, this would be a native fit, and I think it would be a really cool addition to see. And now then, the next thing that I would absolutely love to see, going back to what I've discussed slightly on the water navigation front, is I would love to see a further adaptability of boats. Now, in the latest update, we have seen that there are some water ports being introduced on Mississippi, but Mississippi isn't the only map with large bodies of water that can sometimes be difficult to navigate around. Having the ability for you to put down 2 port locations either side of a lake would be a really time-effective method of traveling around reserve, and it could be implemented in 2 different ways. They could be stationary areas where, like with the tents and tripods, you have a certain amount that you can put down on each reserve, or they could even be a deployable single-use inflatable where you come to the the water's edge and deploy it in that direction. However it was implemented, I do think that that would be a really crucial addition because, like I was saying earlier, there's certain areas of Leighton Lakes where sometimes it can be hundreds of meters for you to get from one side of the water to the other. But also on some maps like Parquet and Quattro, some of the rivers or lakes are quite large, meaning that it takes a long time to get around them, and this would help speed that process up. But as always, guys, I want to know your opinions, so please let me know down in the comments which ones you think would be really awesome to see added, and which ones maybe you're not so keen on. But also, if I've missed any that you think would be great additions to Call of the Wild, please let me know down there as well. I do hope you guys enjoy this style of content where we dive a little bit into the conceptual approach to Call of the Wild and see where the game could potentially go in terms of direction. But until then, guys, I will catch you in the next video. So thank you so much for watching, enjoy the hunting out there, and peace!